All right, OBS, GMT 400, 96, K1500, getting an LS. I needed more fuses, and this is what I did. So I didn't want to run a second fuse block under the hood. I just wanted to have a single fuse block. So originally, I'll actually show you on here because it makes more sense. Originally, the AC relay was here. I moved it to here because this is a 40 amp relay. This is a 20 amp relay. This was actually open. It's air relay, but I don't have that. So I put the pins over, which was really easy to do. They're really easy to pop out. You just move them over. You keep them in the same arrangement. And I verified that these relays, the 30, 86, 85, and 87 are all in the same configuration. So I just literally laterally moved them over and it was done. And then I added a relay here. And from that relay, I took, there's an open fuse spot here. So I added a prong, took this fuse, that's this one here, and it goes out of the harness, folds back and comes in. Had to splice it to the correct plug to go in. And I think it's actually going into the 87, and the 30 coming out goes to what I have here labeled as number 5. I meant to do number 3, so it was a shorter jump, but I got spun around. But it's all right. So this is where it gets interesting. So that would have just powered 3. But if you look, it's actually one of the solid bars that goes across. That was originally up here, powering, if I can get in there to show you, it's originally coming off of here. There's 2 red cables coming out of this plug. And one of them goes to this row to feed these 3 circuits, which is your ECM battery, the horn, and the AC before the relay. The second one went to the row behind it, and the only thing on that row was RR defog. So I just took that whole 3-pin off, cut it, and utilized it for what I wanted, and just spliced in a new terminal. If I had the correct unused raw terminals, I could have just put a new terminal on and plugged it in, and it would have been good to go. Or I could have used a new one here. That would have been great too. I really wish that I had new terminals before doing this, but I didn't. So the relay, I spliced in a ground to a neighboring relay's ground that I went into the harness and confirmed that it was ground, and that's the fuel pump relay. Its ground is a true ground, not a conditional ground. And then, so it's got its ground, and then it's triggered by coming through here. I think it's this wire right here. This originally went to the transmission to give power to the transmission, but now it just turns on this relay. So for my harness, I decided to break it down a lot more than the LT1 swap guy does. I think it's fine the way he does it, but I don't want a second fuse block for 1. I really don't want a second fuse block. And then for 2, if I have a short in my wiring harness, I want to be able to track it down more easily. So I have the mass airflow sensor and the oxygen sensor I'm probably going to put together. And then injector odd, injector even, coil odd, and coil even will each be on their own. And those are, above this line is what it's going to be on the circuits added by my relay. ECM battery fused, I already have. And then transmission and ECM on ignition. I can power off of the ones that already exist. And maybe I'll move the mass airflow sensor over to that one of those two. I might do all of the ECM and transmission all on one fuse, and then the mass airflow sensor and the oxygen sensor on another one. I honestly, I have more fuses than I need now, which is a good problem to have. So I mean, I could put the oxygen on their own and the mass airflow sensor on their own, or I could put the transmission and the ECM on there. I mean, I've got options. But essentially, if I flip this fuse block over, I've got spares here, here, and here. And then these 4 ports, I'll put another spare in here, but these 4 are going to be spares. These 15 amp fuses are going to be some of the main ones that run the vehicle. The harness. I might make one of these a 15 amp. I don't know. And then I've got these, but these 2 10s and these 15s are what I'm going to use, as well as these 2 20s here are ignition 12 volts to the ECM. So essentially I have 7 fuses, and I can change the amps on them as needed. I just put something in. And then those go out to this bundle right here. And I'm going to use an 8-way Deutsch connector because I have 7 fuse 12 volts ignition and 1 fuse 12 volt battery that need to talk to the other harness. I have my data, and I have range selector. So I should make a separate video talking about all that, but this one's specifically the details of what I moved in this harness to make that open up, because the way that the fuse block is at first, these 3 spots are all 12 volt from the battery, and so you have to pull that 3-prong out, which is great because it's useful, and then put a single prong in for the one thing that needs it. So that's how I did my fuse block.